Welcome to Shadowline News. I am bringing you critical analysis of a developing diplomatic crisis that has unfolded within the past few hours. The fragility of Middle Eastern diplomacy has been starkly illustrated as President Donald Trump found himself in the unprecedented position of publicly rebuking both Israel and Iran for violating a ceasefire agreement that he had personally brokered just hours earlier. This remarkable sequence of events reveals not just the challenges of modern conflict resolution, but also the complex dynamics of presidential authority in international affairs. The timeline of events is as extraordinary as it is revealing. Trump announced Monday night that Israel and Iran had agreed on a complete and total ceasefire, marking what appeared to be a diplomatic breakthrough after more than a week of escalating missile exchanges between the two nations. The president characterized this as a phased ceasefire that would bring stability to a region on the brink of wider conflict. However, the diplomatic triumph was short-lived. Despite Trump's announcement, explosions were heard in Tehran from Israeli airstrikes, occurring even as the president claimed Israel had called off strikes at his command, a contradiction between presidential statements and battlefield reality created immediate confusion about the actual status of the ceasefire. The situation deteriorated rapidly from there. Trump declared that both Israel and Iran had violated the ceasefire, expressing particular displeasure with Israel by calling on them to bring your pilots home. Now, this public rebuke of a key ally represents a significant diplomatic moment, demonstrating the limits of even presidential influence when regional powers have their own strategic imperatives. What makes this situation particularly significant is how it exposes the inherent challenges of modern conflict mediation. Traditional diplomacy operates on careful coordination, private negotiations, and gradual implementation. However, the Trump administration approach has consistently favored public announcements and direct communication, often through social media platforms. This strategy can create momentum and apply public pressure, but it also risks creating situations where public commitments exceed actual agreements or implementation capabilities. The Israeli response reveals another layer of complexity. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz ordered intense strikes on Tehran, directly contradicting the ceasefire framework and essentially ignoring presidential directives. This represents more than just a violation of a ceasefire agreement. It demonstrates how regional powers may pursue their own strategic objectives, even when they conflict with the preferences of their primary international ally. From Iran's perspective, the situation presents a different set of calculations. Iran has denied breaking the ceasefire agreement, suggesting that the interpretations of what constituted compliance may have differed between the parties from the very beginning. This highlights a fundamental challenge in rapid diplomatic arrangements, where the specific terms and conditions may not be thoroughly negotiated or clearly understood by all parties. The broader implications extend well beyond this specific incident. The United States has invested enormous diplomatic and military resources in Middle Eastern stability. Yet, this episode demonstrates how quickly carefully constructed agreements can unravel when a sitting president publicly announces a diplomatic breakthrough, only to find himself publicly criticizing the very parties to that agreement within hours. It raises questions about the effectiveness of current diplomatic approaches. This situation also illuminates the changing nature of international relationships in an era of social media diplomacy. Presidential announcements that once would have been carefully coordinated with all parties are now made in real time, sometimes outpacing the actual diplomatic process. This can create situations where public expectations exceed private agreements, or where the announcement itself becomes part of the negotiating dynamic rather than the result of completed negotiations. For American foreign policy, this episode represents a significant moment of vulnerability. The ability to broker agreements between hostile parties has long been considered a cornerstone of American influence in the Middle East. When such agreements collapse within hours, and when key allies openly defy presidential directives. It suggests limitations in traditional American diplomatic leverage. The regional implications are equally concerning. The situation in the Middle East remains far from stable, despite the attempted ceasefire. And the rapid breakdown of this agreement may actually increase tensions rather than reduce them. When diplomatic initiatives fail publicly and dramatically, they can sometimes make subsequent negotiations more difficult by raising questions about the reliability of future agreements. Looking forward, this incident will likely influence how future negotiations are structured and announced. The gap between presidential announcements and battlefield realities suggests a need for more careful coordination between diplomatic statements and military actions. It also highlights the importance of ensuring that all parties have genuinely committed to specific terms before public announcements are made. The international community is watching closely to see how this situation develops, as it may set precedents for how similar conflicts are managed in the future. The combination of traditional regional rivalries, modern communication technologies, and evolving diplomatic approaches creates a complex environment where even well-intentioned efforts can have unintended consequences. This has been your analysis of today's critical diplomatic developments. Stay informed with Shadowline News as we continue monitoring this rapidly evolving situation and its implications for regional stability and international diplomacy.